You wake up before sunrise. The fire has almost gone out. Most of your tribe is asleep, but two people aren't. They're standing just beyond the edge of the camp, speaking quietly in the darkness. Nobody else is supposed to know. At least, that's the plan. And if that scene feels strangely familiar, it's because it is. You might think cheating is a modern problem, something created by dating apps, secret messages, hotel rooms, and social media. But here's where it gets strange. Cheating may be older than civilization itself, older than farming, older than cities, possibly as old as human relationships. And the evidence doesn't come from ancient love letters. It comes from bones, DNA, and a mystery that scientists spent decades trying to solve. Because when researchers started looking closely at ancient human relationships, they discovered something nobody expected. The story humans told about themselves wasn't entirely true. For a long time, people imagined ancient humans living in simple family groups. One man, one woman, their children. A straightforward arrangement. At first, that seems reasonable. After all, that's how many people imagine the distant past. But the real mystery was hiding inside human DNA, and nobody saw it coming. To understand why, you need to travel back hundreds of thousands of years. You're living in a small group. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone eats together, sleeps together, travels together. Privacy barely exists, which creates a strange problem. How do secrets survive in a world where nobody is ever alone? At first glance, cheating should be impossible, but that's exactly why researchers became interested. Because if humans evolved in tiny groups, why does jealousy exist at all? Why do people become suspicious? Why do they hide relationships? Why do they worry about betrayal? Those emotions don't appear by accident. Evolution doesn't usually build expensive emotions without a reason. And jealousy is extremely expensive. It creates stress, conflict, violence, distrust. So why would your ancestors evolve it? Then something unexpected happened. Scientists started studying paternity. In simple terms, they wanted to know how often children were actually related to the men raising them. The results varied between societies, but they revealed something important. Humans have never been perfectly faithful, not now, not in the past, not anywhere, and that's not even the weirdest part, because cheating isn't uniquely human. Birds do it. Lots of them. In fact, some of the strongest evidence came from birds that scientists once considered perfectly loyal. Take swans. They became symbols of lifelong romance. Poetry was written about them, stories celebrated them, people assumed they represented perfect fidelity. Then DNA testing arrived. And suddenly researchers discovered that many baby swans weren't fathered by the swan everyone assumed. The image shattered. What looked like lifelong loyalty sometimes hid secret relationships. And if it happened in animals famous for monogamy, what about humans? The question became impossible to ignore, but here's where it gets stranger. Ancient humans faced a unique challenge. Human children take an extraordinarily long time to grow, much longer than most animals. A baby couldn't survive alone. A mother often needed help, food, protection, support. That encouraged long-term partnerships. But evolution rarely creates simple solutions. Because while stability helped raise children, genetic variety also offered advantages. And suddenly, two competing forces emerged. Stay loyal, or seek other opportunities. The tension between those forces may have existed for hundreds of thousands of years, perhaps even longer, which means the emotional conflicts you see today might be echoes of ancient survival strategies. But the real mystery wasn't whether cheating existed. The real mystery was how ancient humans reacted to it. And that's where archaeology becomes strangely silent. Bones can tell you age, diet, disease, injuries, but bones don't tell you who secretly met whom beside a river 40,000 years ago. They don't reveal whispered conversations, they don't record broken hearts, yet clues still exist, just not where you might expect. One clue comes from genetics. When researchers examined ancient DNA, they discovered something surprising. Human populations were constantly mixing. Groups met, separated, met again. Individuals moved between communities. Relationships formed across tribal boundaries. Some people disappeared from one group and appeared in another. That alone doesn't prove cheating. But it reveals something important. Ancient relationships were often more complicated than people imagine. far more complicated. Then researchers studying modern hunter-gatherers noticed another pattern. Many groups value pair bonds, long-term partnerships, but they also show flexibility. Divorce happens, new relationships form, people leave, people return. Human relationships are remarkably adaptable, and adaptability usually evolves for a reason. At first, that seems impossible. Shouldn't evolution prefer one perfect system? Not necessarily, because ancient environments changed constantly. A strategy that worked during abundance might fail during famine. A relationship that worked 1 year might not work the next. Flexibility became useful, and flexibility creates opportunities, including opportunities for secrecy. But perhaps the most revealing clue comes from your own brain. Think about what happens when someone feels betrayed. The reaction is often immediate, powerful, emotional, sometimes overwhelming. Why? Because your brain isn't responding only to the present moment. It may be responding to problems that existed for thousands of generations. For ancient humans, relationships weren't just emotional. They affected survival, food sharing, protection, childcare, social status. Everything became connected. A broken relationship could change your entire future, which meant the stakes were enormous, and high stakes create strong emotions. Then, something even stranger emerges. Humans aren't only jealous of physical relationships, they're jealous of emotional connections too. A friendship, attention, time, affection. That pattern is unusual, because it suggests human relationships were never just about reproduction. They were about bonding, and bonding may have been one of humanity's greatest survival tools. Your ancestors survived because they cooperated, shared food, shared information, shared protection. Trust became essential, which means betrayal became dangerous. Not always physically, but socially. And social danger mattered a lot. Imagine being excluded from a group 50,000 years ago. No shelter, no protection, no shared food, no allies. Isolation could be deadly. Suddenly, trust wasn't just a nice idea. It was survival. And that's why the emotions surrounding cheating became so intense. They're connected to something deeper than romance. They're connected to belonging, the fear of losing your place, the fear of being replaced, the fear of being left behind. Those fears are ancient, far older than modern culture, far older than written history, but here's the twist most people never expect. Ancient humans probably weren't constantly cheating, and they probably weren't perfectly faithful either. Some relationships lasted for years, some ended quickly, some people stayed loyal, some didn't. Some secrets were discovered, others vanished forever. And that's the part nobody can recover. The conversations, the arguments, the promises, the regrets, those disappeared long ago. No fossil preserves them, no cave painting records them, no skeleton reveals them. Yet traces remain, hidden inside the emotions you still feel today. And maybe that's the strangest realization of all. When you think about ancient humans, it's easy to imagine them as completely different. People living in caves, hunting with stone tools, surviving predators, living in a world that barely resembles yours. But when it came to relationships, they may have been surprisingly familiar. They loved, they worried, they competed, they bonded, they lost people, they formed new connections. And somewhere, under a sky without cities, without roads, without written language, someone almost certainly kept a secret relationship hidden from everyone else. Not because they were modern, because they were human. The technology changed, the clothing changed, the world changed. But human emotions remained remarkably recognizable, which means the real answer to whether ancient humans cheated is probably less shocking than the reason we keep asking. We ask because part of us wants to believe the past was simpler, cleaner, more straightforward, a world before complications, before betrayal, before jealousy, before broken trust. But the evidence points in another direction. The deeper scientists look into human history, the more familiar ancient humans become. Not less. Their world was different. Their emotions weren't. And somewhere in the darkness of prehistory, beside a fading campfire whose ashes vanished tens of thousands of years ago, two people probably exchanged a glance they weren't supposed to. Nobody wrote it down. Nobody recorded it. Nobody preserved the story. Yet the possibility survived, carried forward through generations, until it reached you. A reminder that the oldest mysteries in human history are rarely about stone tools, caves, or lost civilizations. They're about people. And people have always been complicated.